Imagine, if you will, a Mayflower WASP with relatives who signed the Declaration of Independence, contrasted with an ultra-loud, ultra-opinionated former New Jersey fitness personality. These two men committed in their convictions. As a matter of fact, I think one of them was convicted. Warning, everything you see and hear will most likely offend someone. This is The Two Rebels. Two Rebels.
Harrison here with you, along with Rocco Castellano, and we are the Two Rebels. Rocco.
Yes, and today we have a very special occasion because most of the time we're here bantering back and forth, thinking that we can solve all the world's problems, which we often do.
Have solved problems.
Right. And so we decided it would be a really great idea to bring in author and off the grid, living off the grid, getting off the grid, and an author on, and an actual person that not just writes about this shit, but actually is doing it, has done it, and is going to be doing more of it. And his name is Gary Collins, former. Gary, what are you? Because you have so many things going on in your life. I'll just let you take it from here.
Yeah, it's I get that a lot. I get people, "God, you do all these things. How do you do this?" And I'm a former small town redneck, still redneck. Lifelong idiot. People will confirm that as well sometimes. But yeah, I was a federal agent, military intelligence for half my life. I've been a college professor.
You're telling me, wait, time out. You got back that up. You said you're telling us that the federal government now hires idiots? Holy shit.
No, well, that's the thing. Actually, the end, I had a guy who used to be a supervisor who got demoted. And he goes, "You're too smart for this job. You really should leave." And I went, "I'm not that bright." He goes, "Exactly." You know what I mean? you know what I mean?
You know what? Here's the thing, Gary. Most idiots don't declare that they're idiots. They actually think they're not idiots. So we know you're not an idiot. And the fact that you were in military intelligence, the fact that you guarded a lot of these high-profile politicians under whom we sit with their fist pounding on our backs today gives you peculiar insight into what's going on, which I think is why it's excellent that you've chosen to go off the grid, a personal rescue for yourself, and marching instructions, I think, for the rest of us.
Well, I always say everyone's journey is different, especially living off the grid, because everyone wants to just do, a template. And I go, it's your journey. Everyone you meet who lives off the grid, we've all done it differently. And that's because we follow this crazy thing called personal freedom. And I call it widget in, widget out society in which we're today. And everyone wants to be a widget, making widgets, earning widgets, buying widgets. And I finally said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to live my life. And the famous saying by Matt Kibbe, whether you like him or not, I do personally, his famous saying for that, his book is, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. I mean, if you live by that motto, pretty much, it's pretty hard to argue that one, right? As long as I'm not hurting anyone, who cares? Who cares what I'm doing? And I kind of just took that, and after working in the government for half my life by the time I had left, and realizing that the people I was around who are basically running this country are some of the stupidest people on the absolute planet, but they're some of the most greedy, corrupt, and morally bankrupt people. And I did an interview where someone asked me about that, and I went, because they said, well, you say they're stupid, but they come across intelligent. I go, when you're not playing by the rules, you can come across intelligent. When your whole goal is to manipulate people, it's an act. It has nothing to do with intelligence at that point. And they thought about it, and and I go, yeah, an actor can follow a script, right? I've met actors who could barely tie their shoes, but they sound great on camera. I mean, they look like geniuses. I won't mention any names.
I'm going to give the definition.
I can attest to that too.
Rocco, I'm just going to give honor to the definition of irony here. and then we're going to jump to Rocco here. You're a guy who's off the grid, and people are thinking right now, but wait a minute, he's on video right now doing this whole thing, yes, but he's off the grid. That seems like irony, but it's not, is it?
Well, and that's what I mean. Most people look at off the grid, they think of Ted Kaczynski in a shed, you know, pooping in a bucket, right? That's not it. I live in a very modern home. I built this thing. I built my business too to run remotely. I'm using a Wi-Fi hotspot. I've had it for 8 years. It was one of the first ones that came out. And that's how I had to be able to run a business. So there has to be some compromises. Off grid, technically, the definition is just not being tied to public utilities. That is the basic definition. And you'll get all kinds of people arguing. I had one guy send me an email one time and go, "You don't live off grid, you have running water." I went, "What? What's that have to do with anything?" You know, and he goes, "Well, you have a," yeah, I go, "The Romans had running water."
Right, I mean, they had aqueducts.
Christ, you know, well, how far do we want to push this? You know, hey, you know, and that's what I mean. For me, I just tell people it's whatever you want it to be, but the definition, long as you're not on public utilities, wired, you know, I don't have a phone line. I don't have cable TV. I don't have power. I don't have, public sewage. I run my municipality myself. I run all this. This is me. This is the town of Cary. So, you know, it just depends what you want to do. And we were talking about homesteading last night, right, Rocco?
Right.
Because you asked, do you raise animals and do all that? I go, no, I'm not a homesteader. I have to travel and there's no way I could do it. And I live on the top of a mountain. So it really isn't conducive. And also I'm not here all year long. I leave and live in my RV part of the year. So, but I know a lot of homesteaders who do not live off grid. I know a lot of people who live off grid aren't homesteaders, but I also know a lot of people who live off grid and are homesteaders. So there's just different variants of a more remote lifestyle. And that's a great part. You pick and choose how you want to do it.
Well, in your book, Getting Off the Grid.
Going off the grid, yeah.
Yeah, getting off the grid was, you explain in that you have a nice list that you kind of explain what your definition of them are, and I pretty much agree with them because I'm more of a prepper than an off the grid guy because I live. You were making me laugh in your book. You said, "Oh yeah, well, I went from a 3,000 square foot house to 1,700 to 475," and I was laughing because I'm like, I went from a 3,000 square foot house to a much bigger house, and I'm prepping my ass off. So
yeah, well, and that's the thing. You can be a prepper. I have friends who are preppers. They live in major cities. You can be a prepper anywhere.
I went to prep school.
There you go. There you go, Cary.
That just sucked. That was horrible.
Well, as we talk to Gary Collins, Going Off the Grid, the how-to book of simple living and happiness, he talks about primitive off-grid living, homesteading, which he mentioned before, prepping, and you also are the father of the primal method, if I'm not mistaken.
I had a company called Primal Power Method. I started when I left the government. I created a health company. I used to work for the FDA at the very end as a special agent. And I was always a lifelong athlete. I'm a health guy, always have been, and realized I was doing everything wrong once I started digging into, I was actually investigating naturopaths and natural health practitioners through investigations. And don't get me wrong, on both sides. Western medicine and homeopathic medicine, and there's bad people on all sides. But what I was learning is there was a common thread of natural health, and it always went back to this book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price.
Yep.
And he wrote it in the 30s. It's kind of the Bible of natural health. And so I read it.
Guy for all the people out there that talked about milk and teeth and all that stuff.
Yeah, he was a dentist, and that's what was fascinating about it. He didn't go out to study, and he went to 37 countries. Him and his wife. He didn't go out to study why people were unhealthy. He went and found indigenous tribes that were healthy and why. And that's what made it so different. And that kind of put me on this path of natural health. Cause like I said, I thought I was doing everything right. I was being like Mike, I was drinking Gatorade, I was out, pounding carbs, refined carbs, and, had to keep my glycogen up, this and that. And once I realized what I was doing and doing wrong, I went, oh, and I had a lot of health problems at the time. I was in my later 30s and the wheels were starting to fall off, which is the typical age for most people. And once I reversed my diet, my allergies went away, my eczema went away. It wasn't perfect. Health, and we're animals. Every animal has health issues. There's nothing that's perfect. But a lot of those nagging things went away that I'd had most of my life. And I couldn't figure it out, and doctors couldn't figure it out. Well, besides giving you a prescription. And I have a saying, I laugh all the time. I tell people there's no money in healthy people. If we're healthy, we basically collapse the entire health industry of the United States. It's a massive industry. We spend far more money on health and wellness in this country than any developed nation, but yet we're the unhealthiest nation in the world.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because our own Harry Truman tried to have universal health care back in the 1940s after bombing to smithereens Japan and Germany, firebombing in Dresden. They realized the only way to bring back these two former civilizations was to have, medicine, Band-Aids for all. And so the idea was to have that here because you get more bang for your buck and it works better. But alas, the Medical Association got together and decided that this retail medicine for profit, where sick people make you money, well people don't, you're right. And then we have a whole insurance industry where the $1 trillion that has nothing to do with medicine, but God damn it, do they make a lot of money. So the sicker you and I are, the more we're guzzling Gatorade and eating Pop-Tarts, the better a day they're all having together. And you found a way around it, didn't you?
Well, I love Pop-Tarts, don't get me wrong.
You're the guy. You're the guy.
Yeah, my rule is if I don't buy them, I'm good. I mean, I grew up on Pop-Tarts, and those things are crack. They are literally crack. And that's the way our food industry is designed today, though. And Thomas Massey talks about, Congressman Thomas Massey talks about, because he's a homesteader, off-gridder, former MIT grad who was forced into politics. Really nice guy. I interviewed him for my podcast, and he talks about that our food distribution system, our medical system, it's all geared to keep us unhealthy. I mean, even our animals are unhealthy that we're eating through confined animal feeding operations. If we were to treat our dogs and cats and pets the same way big ag and big ranching treats their animals, we'd all be in jail. I mean, it is horrific the way we treat the animals that we consume in this country. That's why I only eat free range. I mean,
you guys both remember famously, and I think it was in the late 1990s, and Oprah sort of brought this to light for the public, but the idea of, prions and recombinant bovine growth hormone and what was going on, grinding up cats and dogs here in LA, particularly 200,000 cats and dogs a year, grinding them up into mush and then feeding them to cattle. Cattle, of course, are supposed to be vegan, and you're starting to feed them meat and these prions, and you get this Jakob Creutzfeldt syndrome, or bovine spongiform encephalopathy in the cow's brains. It's spongy and horrible. And people are getting mad cow disease and all that from feeding people's pets or meat to vegetarian animals. Exactly, you're right. It causes serious havoc. And most people, and you were an investigator in part of this, most people have no idea what's in their food.
Well, I was involved in the Purina case. Matter of fact, I think my name was on the search warrant. I'm pretty sure it was. That case came out of another region originally, but we executed the search warrant in Las Vegas. And that was an eye-opener for me too. And I mean, they killed somewhere around 10,000 pets, if I remember right. But yeah, I mean, a cow's a ruminant. It eats grass. Yeah. That's what it does. And instead, we've decided in our human logic that we're going to feed it, corn, genetically modified corn, soy, and other animals. And nothing's going to go wrong with that, of course. Well, it's like humans. Look at what we eat today.
Yeah.
In the last 100 years, our diet has changed so drastically that And people always go, oh, I'll just evolve to adapt to these foods. No, you won't. Human beings were never intended to eat some of the crap that we eat today. And that's the problem, is getting back to food, the real food movement, right? And economy. And I've talked about this numerous times. Not only is it bad for the environment, but it's horrible for the economy. And they go, wait, what a second. Well, how's that work? If you just 100 years, 150 years ago, you either were a farmer, knew a farmer, or you part-time farmed. Pretty much everyone. You had to look everyone in the eye, to include your cow that you were just about to eat, on a regular basis. Today, we don't see any of that. We're completely excluded from the process. Economically, if we were to go back to that, where animals were actually allowed to, I don't know, live outside and not in cages, and let them eat the foods they were intended to eat to get sunlight. Well, for the economy, it's better too, because it would take, again, smaller ranchers locally, which means you only have to transport the food a very small distance. They're eating the vegetation and things that you are around. So it's healthier. And it creates a whole host of small businesses, and it keeps that money within your economy. There's a whole host of reasons why big food exists, but it kills me that we just can't quite figure it out. I don't know what it is
Well,
about
we
humans.
can pronounce the word Monsanto and Novartis pretty well. And
And Arch Daniels and, all of them. I mean, like, there's only 6 companies in the world that make our food, or that channel the food to our grocery stores. But the thing is, over the past 100 years, because people have no attention span. They need 700 different mushrooms, 400 different carrots, oranges and broccoli, all these different varieties of like food, which like scientists have to create from a test tube, because carrots weren't orange when they were first made. They were white, and they came from Egypt, or they came from somewhere else, right? Yeah. And they didn't grow here, and they didn't come out orange, and they weren't perfectly straight, and to all of that, so, and most people, the 3 of us here, and I say that's most people, but it's really not. But most people know that they're eating shit. And that's the kind of thing, but they still eat shit. And it's the same thing with the politicians or your food system. You're eating shit, and you're eating shit, but you still allow yourself to eat shit. And that's where I think the psychology or the mindset has to absolutely shift. And in your books and in the way that you live, you decided, and you actually say in the book, you said that you had to make that mindset shift. And then you absolutely have to have patience. No one in the world has patience, and they like all their shit. And you call them junkaholics in the book, but that's the thing. Like, they are junkaholics. You make money, you stress yourself, you literally stress yourself the fuck out every single day in order to buy more shit that you don't need, so that you can become unhealthy, uneducated. You got smartphones, and you're the dumbest piece of shit on the face of the earth. And that's kind of the thing that I'm concerned about.
Well, and that's what I mean. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm not the dumbest either. But when I look around and I go, damn, you're dumb, that's a problem, and I don't do it. I try not to do it often. But that's why I wrote this.
I say it every day, Cary. I literally say it on podcast and every single day. And it's right. 98% of America's dumb as shit.
Well, and that's how, again, I wrote the Simple Life series for more general America, because going off the grid, that's kind of an extra step. That's more of a niche.
You're so kind.
A lot of people are interested in it, but I created the three-legged stool, and that's, I sent that little book that I wrote outlining that to you, Life Balance Reboot. And the three-legged stool, the way I developed it was dumbing things down over years and trying to simplify what I was teaching. What were the main components? And I came up with optimal health. You need to be the healthiest you possibly can be is step one. Step two, being financially free by being debt free. And the third leg in the stool is to find your life purpose and pursue things that make you happy and your passion that help other people. Now, it sounds very woo-woo, the last part especially, but I tell people the reason I developed it, it had a two-pronged approach to it. First of all, those are the three things that people struggle with on a daily basis in America all the time. And I've had people come to me and go, God, you're a real rocket scientist to come up with that. Gee, Captain Obvious. And I go, okay, how many of those are you doing? And they instantly look down at their feet and I go, exactly. The second part of it was those three things are the things we have willingly given away to big corporations and big government, which are primary freedoms that make us free. By taking those back, you're returning the freedom back to yourself. And once you do that, your life completely changes. I know I've done it. I've taught a lot of other people to do it. Every one of them comes back and goes, oh my God, my life is completely different. COVID-19, don't give a shit. I don't care. President, I don't care. Because my life is geared to be able to weather the storm no matter what and not lose sleep over it. I tell people when COVID-19, because I did an interview and they go, so what'd you do for food? I went, there was plenty of grass-fed beef, fruits, and vegetables in the grocery store. I go, there wasn't any Spam, Doritos, Coke, and toilet paper because they need the toilet paper because they're shitting themselves every day. I go, all my food, there was plenty of it. All the healthy food, not even a problem. Matter of fact, grocery stores were throwing away fruits and vegetables because it was going bad because no one was buying them.
That's exactly right, Gary Collins. I noticed that here in Los Angeles. It was the same thing. The organic food was rotting away and all the Spam and other crap was definitely gone, stripped off the shelves. I was telling Rocco just the other day that in just the first 2 days, the Trader Joe's here was stripped except for one little tin of chicken broth. My grandmother, who grew up on a farm, made it right to the finish line, 99 years old. Pooped in an outhouse when they ran out of the Sears catalog. And historically, for people who don't know this, the Sears was the Amazon of the day. And every year they published this thick, wasn't it? Like a phone book. And you used that as your toilet paper. And then when that ran out, you used corn cobs. And you didn't die from all of this. You actually had health. And you didn't eat your animals every day, but you ate them sort of once a week. There was a more natural give and take, ebb and flow between your relationship of you and nature. You grew up in a trailer in Northern California. You grew up without a lot of money. You grew up around nature. So you respect it, much as many of our founding thinkers of America, like, I'm forgetting his name, Walden Pond. I mean, great philosophers.
David Thoreau.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great American philosophers reminding us that this is kind of the core of who we are and how we need to have a purpose-driven life. And I know that's Rocco's core principle. That's your core principle. I share it too. I'm wondering if this COVID has been a master reset for people. They take advantage of it. They can now go find that purpose-driven life and get out of that, trough they were in before.
Well, I've got a funny story before we even get to that. My parents owned one of the basically franchise Sears stores when I was very young. We grew up middle class until I was about 7. Then I said we went straight to Poorville and we never figured out how to get out of that town. And we did. As a kid, I would put the stickers with the phone numbers on the Sears catalogs. They would come in these massive boxes on a big truck that delivered all the items to our Sears store. And yeah, I would go through it. The catalog was massive. And I remember I had fond memories of the Sears catalog and people would come in just glowing. Are the catalogs in? Are the catalogs in? And that was old America in a sense, because my parents, they ran it, just my mom and dad. That was it. Had no employees. They got a helper later on. I didn't understand the business side of it, but that's where I learned how to count money. They taught me how to count money in the cash register. I worked, so me and my sister had chores. So we would put stickers on the catalogs. We would stack the catalogs. Eventually they taught us how to put the items in the bins, and that's kind of gone today. So a little side story there. I have a personal relationship.
That was the old style Sears and Roebuck, like stores. They were kind of set up like an Ace Hardware store, weren't they?
Very much so.
Back then,
Well,
yeah.
There was that you could get it as just a franchise in a way. And our store was called Sears. It was Sears, but it was in a tiny little town. It was a small store, and you came in and it was a catalog order. You came in, you ordered it. We didn't carry anything. Every once in a while we would carry a washer, dryer here and there. My dad would buy it and then someone come in and buy it. But it was just catalog order. You ordered the catalog and then it would show up. You come and pick it up at the store. I don't even think
reward.
We didn't even deliver it. You had to come get it.
Right.
We didn't have enough money or the resources to deliver it to you. And plus it was rural. But yeah, the COVID-19 thing's been really interesting for me because a lot of us, I was talking to a neighbor today, and my property has pretty much doubled in a very short period of time. So I'm making some decisions. There is another off-grid house coming. There's another project, a grid-tied house that I just started the process on right now. But yeah, I hope that people are waking up. But it's interesting that when I started this journey 10 years ago, all my friends and family thought there was something wrong with me, and they were asking me if I needed help, like mental help. And now all of them are going, wait, how'd you do that? I want to know how to do that now. And I'm no clairvoyant, life clairvoyant. I just was pursuing what I thought I should pursue to live free. That's all I was doing. And it came from growing up rural. I grew up in a town of 1,800 people in the Sierra Nevadas. The town I lived in was 50 to 100 people, 25 miles from that town. So I was around outside all the time. I knew freedom. And I lost my path along the way. We were poor, but I'll take poor and being free than being rich and being confined. I'll take it all day long.
Well, it's its own prison. It's its own prison when you're rich. I mean, shit. I was a multi-millionaire, and I felt like I was in prison, and I make much less now, but I'm way healthier, way better off, and I have a better life because.
And people think I'm anti-money. I am not. I have a simple saying. I say money equals freedom. The more money you have, the more potential for freedom you have. The more freedom you have, the less money it takes to maintain that level of freedom. And I came up with that all on my own. So
good point.
Hope that made sense. But, one day I was just thinking about money because I was there. I was chasing it all the time. And like I said, it's important, but you have to teach it as freedom. Today, we look at it as a way to obtain shiny objects and to obtain power and greed. And I go, once you get into that realm of it, now it's toxic. But long as you think it as a representation of your freedom, that's a different thing, because people learn real quickly it takes a heck of a lot less money to live free than they thought.
To your point, there was a study done recently, and they found that you could live like a millionaire on $29,000 a year. Huh?
Yeah.
What? Huh? And it was really simple.
Yeah.
No debt. So these were people that owned their properties. Literally, all they were doing is paying property taxes and food. And so a revenue stream of about 29 grand. They lived in great houses, had all the creature comforts they needed, but it was the lack of debt, so that every penny that they had coming in was just spent on just keeping it steady. And that's a simple trick. That's what you're talking about here.
Well, yeah, I wrote a whole book on it called The Simple Life Guide to Financial Freedom. Yeah. Hopeless plug. Not really, but I did it differently because I grew up with Dave Ramsey. I watched Dave Ramsey evolve, and I was a firm believer. And being poor, it's easy. If you don't have money, you don't have money. That's all there was to it. I had to learn how to budget. I started working. I made $3.35 an hour, working as a dishwasher in a restaurant. So today, everything's gotten completely turned upside down. And I always say, people who bitch about money in this country, I go, you do realize that our poorest are the richest 1% in the world. They go, what do you mean? I go, okay. $15 an hour where I live in Washington is the standard as minimum wage in some parts of Washington. $15 an hour if you work 40 hours a week, because I did this whole book on financial freedom on basic math. I proved that every American has the potential to be a millionaire if they just paid attention to money, what they do with their money. And so it's about $31,200 a year if you just work 40 hours a week, $15 an hour. So if you're a couple or you and a buddy, whatever, that's $60,000+ a year to cook my fries. I don't eat fries, and I'm all that. It makes absolutely zero sense. So you making $31,200 a year, that puts you in the richest 1% in the world on our typical minimum wage in most places today. That's insane. And what do people do? They bitch and complain. I don't make enough. You need to pay me more. No, you need to save more. We don't have an earning problem in this country. We have a spending problem. That's our problem. And I live debt-free. You know, I own this house. I built this house. It took me 5 years to build it. And why? Because I had to save, build. I did it for 5 years. And I scrimped every penny I could. I worked side jobs. I did whatever I could, but I own this house outright. So when I go to sell it, I'm going to make a decent chunk of money and clear it. And,
it all goes to you too. It doesn't,
yeah.
You don't have to give it to anybody else really. And, you know, and so maybe the realtor for helping you, and that's that's real life, but nobody wants to live in a real life. And that whole patience thing that you talk about, right? 5 years, that's patience, and also understanding like the stuff about like getting off the grid, doing the research, making sure that every single thing you know and you prepare for. Like some of the things that you were talking about, I was laughing at, because everybody thinks that like you said, you can watch a YouTube video or you read some asshole's book that's like 5 pages. It's a little ebook. The easy guide to living off the grid, and they don't mention the permits, or they don't mention drilling a well, or where you're going to get water. And you maybe laughed earlier about, you have running water. Well, most people think that you have to go lap a lake or a stream or something to get your water, or you're like eating, honeysuckles to get hydrated, or some crazy like that.
Well, and that's, I mean, this is the nicest house I've lived in. I built a lot of it, but also that American making $15 an hour can do this house, hands down. It was not that expensive. It wasn't free. It wasn't cheap. No one was handing me free money to go build this house. Matter of fact, there is not financing for living off the grid or going off the grid. They do not finance those houses. Some of it has come around. They're starting to come around a little more, but the most you'll get is 50% of loan to value. That's the best I've ever heard. And it's hard to get these loans. And I teach people, the patience, and in the end, you own it. So I can leave this house and it's no skin off my back. I can leave it. I'm not paying payments on it, and that's the thing, is people
sell it. If you don't sell it, you're only paying the taxes on it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing too. You can shut it down, you can winterize it, and you can walk away and go, you know what? I'm going to go RVing right now.
Yep. And I do every year. And that's what I mean. It's about a paradigm shift of understanding what's important. I always say, change what you can change, ignore the rest. And I had to go through a whole metamorphosis of being in the government. I was a news junkie when I got out, because we were always watching CNN, Fox, wherever. We were always watching the news, listening to the news to see what was going on. And I got sucked into that realm when I got out of the government. And I was sitting around just watching news all day, and it was depressing the shit out of me. I realized I need to get away from this. And I think that's the problem with America today is a lot of people focus on things that just don't matter. That all they do is have a negative impact in their life. And I'd rather focus on the things that are going to benefit me. And not to be, you know, I'm not talking total narcissism either. I'm saying that everything I do is to provide a service to help other people. I wake up in the morning. I don't dread going to work. I'm my own boss. I love what I do. You know, I sleep like a baby at night most of the time. I'm getting old. My sleep cycles are a little weird as I get older, but you know what I mean? You know, and I'm able to write these books. I'm far more productive. And, you know, people go, how do you do all this stuff? I go, I work. When I work, I focus and I get my shit done. And then I go enjoy the rest of my day. That's it. I'm not on Facebook. I just deleted my Facebook account yesterday. I don't use it. I haven't used it in years. And finally, Zuckerberg, in his infinite wisdom, who I absolutely detest as a human being, but all of a sudden I started getting notifications out of nowhere on, you know, the email notifications. I go, all these are turned off. And all of a sudden I just get flooded with them. I'm getting every notification demand. I don't have Facebook open, nothing. I'm not even logged in. And so I go in there and I get pissed off because now I got to go through and uncheck everything in there. And I went, okay, screw this. I'm done. And I went and deleted the account. And I went, I just don't even want to deal with it anymore. And I realized I thought about it as after I did it, and I went, I'll bet that jackass has some program in Facebook that if you don't use it for a certain period of time, they turn on all your notifications on purpose. So you have to go back into Facebook and manually turn everything off. So that way you'll re-engage. He probably knows that if you get there and you start getting into it, that you'll re-engage with Facebook. I'll put money on that.
We do that. We do that. I mean, I do that. I don't have to be Mark Zuckerberg. In our programs, right? In our online programs, we suspend people automatically after non-use of 60
I do too. I do too.
So that when they do come back, they have to engage us personally because they're assholes. No, I mean, or because they're, you know, that's why, you know, so that's the asshole button that we use, you know, saying, oh, you haven't used this product in 60 days. So we're going to automatically suspend you. So when you do come back, you know that we know you're an asshole.
Well, no, and I do that too. Through my way I do thing is if you don't engage, we take you off the email list. And then after a while, we'll send you a little, hey, do you still want to be involved? If not, just let us know and we'll delete it. We'll just get you out of the system. But what made me mad about it is I was literally 15 minutes into fighting it, you know, trying to turn these notifications off. And that's what I mean. If it would have just been an email saying, hey, we're going to shut down your account, you haven't engaged, I'm totally fine with that. I had to go in and figure out where all these notifications were turned on, figure out how to turn them all off because they were all on. All of them got turned back on. And I had to go through each one by one. And I just went,
I have a quick Zuckerberg story for you guys. So in 2006, back, you guys remember MySpace? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Vague memory of MySpace? And Facebook was just starting to emerge. And Zuckerberg was doing interviews because he was suddenly this little superstar. And I was doing a network show and I had him on and he revealed something that he won't reveal today. I said, well, what's the point of Facebook? Because I didn't really get it. The name sounded awful to me, Facebook. It just sounds like, you know, MySpace, like I'm a 13-year-old girl, Facebook. And he said, the point of Facebook is this. If you remember AOL, and I remembered AOL, I think many of us remember AOL, which was the internet. You went on AOL, you did shopping, your chat rooms, whatever you did, it was on AOL. If you left AOL to the internet, it was a black screen with a C prompt. So you were either on the internet, AOL, or there was nothing. He said he wanted to replicate that so that most people, and these are the people he was looking at, who are social retards and incapable of having like normal interactions, they could now have friends. And you could have like hundreds of friends because you can't actually have real friends. You have make-believe friends. And then they would invent these algorithms, he didn't call them then, that would then decide and figure out what you liked and then start talking to you about what you liked. And basically all your needs would be met. You would never have to have real human relationships anymore. You could do all your shopping within this ecosystem. And basically he would then own you and own society. It wasn't presented cynically. It was just a solution to all of our social phobias, of which he happens to have them in multiples.
Right.
What a revelation. And here it is today.
Well, am I the only one that now thinks he looks like a pale Oompa Loompa? Have you noticed the haircut? It's really, he's a weird looking cat. And I agree, he is a social retard. He created a concept for his people, mainly for him. I think it was purely narcissistic in the way he invented. And not only that, it was obvious he was shunned a little bit because he was. And there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, everyone's different. I tell people there's a group for everyone. I think it was a little more sinister because I think with his background and the people he hung around with, they were really good at data. They understood data. I think they knew that if they could get people in there, they could collect their data very early on. I think he discovered that. And he said, okay, if we get their data, and that was right when companies were understanding that data was money, right? Data points. If you look at the timing of it, it was a little too convenient. And I think he realized that, okay, all we got to do is get this thing out for free, get a bunch of people in. They're going to share all of their secrets, all their shopping habits, whether they're home, away, where they're vacationing. I think he was much smarter than that. I think he understood that he was collecting data. The whole point
That wasn't Zuckerberg. So you're absolutely correct, but it wasn't Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg wasn't that smart. And he still isn't that smart. Okay. I mean, he
really
was
creepy though.
Programming way. He was smart. He was smart. He was smart in different ways, but the whole addictive nature and the data and the accumulation of data came from a few of the people that he was friends with and that he brought on to help to create the algorithms. And that's where the evil came in, because he actually befriended people and actually hired people to do the psychology of Facebook, which is now intertwined into, here's, like what Cary, I study the shit out of this stuff. And I always like to study where people went, like with Amazon, with Facebook, with Google, and what they're trying to do now. And Facebook wanted to get to critical mass, and Zuckerberg did want this. He wanted to get as many people as humanly possible interacting, engaging, fighting, loving, all that stuff, and develop communities in order to then get them addicted to whatever, because they didn't understand the iPhone just yet, because that's back when Facebook first came out. It was only going after college kids. They only went from one college to the next, and they opened it up because they wanted, like what Cary was saying before, but they wanted to engage these people, and they wanted to give people the opportunity to get laid. And that was one of the revelations that we found out, was that, people wanted to interact, but they didn't know how to go up into a bar, because, these were all geeks that had no social mannerisms whatsoever. So they wanted to engage online, with people that they thought had the same likes, dislikes, and all.
I'm so glad you just said that, Rocco, because that's exactly, you guys have heard of Tinder and Grindr.
Yeah.
So Grindr is the original one. Tinder came after. Grindr was one that was created for gays, and it was started by a guy named Joel Simkai.
It's always the gays. It's always
Well,
the
yep,
gays.
absolutely. And so this guy is Israeli, and so it was fully funded, this project. And Joel Simkai lives here in West Hollywood, California.
What are you saying? Jews control the world? What do you know? I'm kidding.
I didn't quite go there, but I'll give you credit for that.
Yes.
So Joel could not get laid. Joel is a bit of a clodhopper. He's not a swordsman. So he invented an app that would allow you, to take a snapshot of yourself. So 1/100th of a millisecond of a moment of perfection. Then you Photoshop it like a billboard, this best moment, and you put it up there on the screen. And that's what people see over and over again, is this magical moment. And then also created it in such a way where you can't really have conversations. You can say sup, hi, fuck me, whatever it is. And that's it. So it allowed a guy who can't go into a bar, navigate a basic conversation and have a beer with someone successfully, to do make-believe, put up an image that they're going to like until they meet you, of course, but you're negotiating all the sexual aspects. So by the time they show up, it's too late to turn back and leave. And it works. Here's the problem, as I see it, with Tinder too, is it has now forced all of us who do have maybe grander capabilities of social interactivity to be forced to work in these tiny little channels of this new societal norm, which means eat, shit, fuck, sleep. And I like to think I have a broader range of motion, but if I want to function with my own people, I got to now do it in this little narrow channel. And that...
And Gary, you could chime in on this whenever you want, but I'm going to say that at some point that gets annoying, sickening, and really fucking irritating, right? Because anybody with a brain doesn't want to just eat, shit, fuck, and whatever else.
Sleep.
Right? There has to be the rest of your life. And then when people realize, because that's what's happening right now, is that all these people are living in that fake fucking world, and they don't know what to do. And we have literal arguments, Gary, all the time. And you can referee this shit too if you want, but
no
we have
problem.
little fights about the 50 million fucking people out there that don't have jobs, but they feel the necessity to burn down their hometowns or whatever, you know? And that's why this off the grid thing is so appetizing to me, because I live in a nice neighborhood, but I told my wife, I said, listen, you know what? The first place, I'm like measuring the windows for fucking roller doors and all type of plywood, and also because the first place poor people are gonna go is to places that they believe rich people.
Oh yeah,
they're gonna steal their shit.
And I live at the top of a mountain, and I don't worry too much, and I'm pretty good with let's just say things I need to be good at. But I'm still hung up. We gotta go backwards.
You're a pretty good shot. That's what you're saying.
You're saying college kids like to get laid?
Well,
I didn't know
that's
that.
what he says.
Right.
I think I spent most of my time from age 13, well, maybe till right now, trying to get laid. No, I mean, getting old, it was nice, but you're right. And what we're doing is people are living through proxy. They're not living in real life. And that's a big problem of it. Social media has created this kind of go-between that is unnatural between human interaction. You know, a lot of body language is how we read each other, you know, face to face. If I see an expression on your face, or you kind of moving a certain way, and I used to use this a lot as a criminal investigator to see when people are lying, that you get cues, and these cues help you interact What we've done is we've removed those cues. So now people can, and not only that, but we've removed the repercussions of that big hole in your face. You know, if you go up to someone and start yelling at them and telling them they're wrong, they're an asshole, fuck you. Well, guess what? You're going to get punched in the face. That's the reaction. Well, through social media, you can basically terrorize people without any consequences.
Yeah.
And that's the problem too. And I laugh at that. I don't use social media except for I'm using Twitter, and I use it for I'm sure you guys do, for the podcast. It's easy to find people. And I used to say too, I go, the reason I don't use social media and I never liked it is I used it in the government. And they go, what do you mean? I go, if I couldn't find a suspect, I just went on social media. All the dipshits had a social media account. And I go, I couldn't find them through databases that I had. I could always find them on goddamn social media every time because they were so stupid. And we only catch the stupid ones too, by the way. Don't catch the smart ones. And yeah, I just went, it gave a bad taste in my mouth right away that I went, it just, to me, social media has a place, but everything I look at in life today is a tool, you know, like technology. I don't let technology use me. I use it as a tool. I run my entire business off technology. But I have less technology than the average American. Shit, less than the average 8-year-old. I probably have less technology than they have in their hands every single day. It's understanding what you need and what you need to utilize. And yeah, I think we are. I never did Tinder or any of that stuff, but I did do online dating early on. And I don't know if you guys did any of it. It was a cesspool. I think I did it for like 2 years, and I went, this is where the broken women definitely go.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself at all because I was literally working too much to have relationships. So that whole, trying to figure out a profile and all that. My wife, who I'm married to now, had to create my Facebook account now, and I'm a digital marketing guy. And so, but she said, "Oh no, you got to get on Facebook." I said, "No, I don't." But she put together my profile for Facebook when we first got together.
Well, people are shocked. I created what I do today I started almost 10 years ago as when I left the government. I was an entrepreneur before, but a part-timer. I did real estate, side hustles, was properties, which I still do a little bit to this day. But what happened was that evolving of figuring out what I needed to utilize to make my company successful. And what I found out is it's not as much as you think. And understanding that, like Facebook and all that. When I left, I remember going, I didn't like it anyway. And I had the accounts, I used them. It drove me nuts. You'd get the trolls, the idiots asking you the same question over and over again, and they want free information. Yeah. I had to work really hard for this information. I had to go through a lot of hard knocks in life, spend a lot of money on things that I failed at. And now you want all this stuff for free? No, that's not how this is going to work. So I got off it pretty early. And when I did this a long time ago, I told a friend, I'm going to prove a point. I can build a successful business without social media. Is it going to be hard? Yes. But all the social media darlings in the health world that were kicking my ass back then, they're back at Starbucks, serving my coffee to me in the morning. They're done. There's only a couple of us left who started, and I'm in a different direction now, kind of. Health is still a big part of what I teach. But yeah, I just look at it, and also the way I developed my business is I wanted to control it. I don't want some Nimrod Zuckerberg controlling my business, deciding who I can contact and who's going to see my information. I need to control that. I need to possess that. I need to have an email list of customers who want to be a part of that email list. You know what I mean? And I've always looked at it that way. And I'm on Oddball as an author right now. So I've always sold all my books on my website. I've had a full e-commerce website for 8 years. I built it before I even had a customer base. I put the cart before the horse big time, but I said, this is the future. If I don't build a full functioning website now, I'm going to have to do it later. So why not invest the time and money now and evolve with it and learn with it? It's worked really well because I'm way ahead of people, especially all authors. Very few authors have e-commerce websites. I'm one of the few. and being able to control that. You know, I sell quite a few books through my website. I control all my print. You know, I distribute my books through my own print, and I use Amazon. Obviously, I'm sold worldwide, but my goal is to have the majority of my books purchased through my website. That's the goal. It's direct to consumer is my model. I think there's too many middlemen. There's too many people scraping data. I don't do that. I can't automate my workforce. I can't go to robots. I have to rely on humans. You know, I have to do these things by hand. I have to employ people. And that's what I mean by learning that lesson. You know, I provide a service, but I don't understand why Zuckerberg and Bezos and all of these people and Bill Gates have to be taking a cut of my money every time I turn around. I already give enough to the government. How many more hands can I have in my pocket at this point? And I've done the math. The average American's lucky if they take 50% of what they earn home.
Oh, I think that the average is more like 29% from what we know now. But you make a really great point, because I do a lot of business consulting for what I do, and one of the big things is that you had, and we go back to patience again, you had the patience to become what we call full stacked. And that means to anybody out there that you needed to learn all the different things that you knew you needed to learn to create a full successful business. You had to know a website, you had to build a website, you had to know e-commerce, you had to, and since you live in Washington, you might know a guy named Ben Settle, who I'm a huge fan of, but maybe you don't, but he's a big fan of not using social media, only using email, understanding that you own that list forever and ever and ever, and it can be curated or it can be expanded at will, and that your website is the main hub, and anyone who really believes in what they're doing and everyone has an experience, knowledge, or something that they can teach or that they can represent. And, anyone can do this. And I think that COVID, getting back to what we were talking about, I think that COVID, and we have a little back and forth, me and Cary, about this, but I believe that COVID was the greatest stress test that has ever happened for businesses and for people, because if you're a person that's out of work right now, you need to think about your career choice and if you're a bartender, maybe you might want to go to, technical school or go to one of the 10 million jobs that has an apprenticeship, or stay unemployed and just sit around smoking pot.
Well, no, they've proven the natural progression is marginal bartender to congresswoman. I thought that was the correct. No, that's not how it works. I thought that was it.
We're in California. We're from here, so of course that does make sense here.
Right.
And
I used to be.
Yeah.
That's funny, because everybody used to be either in California or LA. Every single person that was a waiter, a waitress, a server, was a bartender, or
actor, model, bartender.
Every server was an actor. Right now, they're either actors or now personal trainers or fitness trainers. Now they've expanded because the bartending thing wasn't really working for some people, and they look better in shorts than most. So they were able to, to say, hey, I'm a fitness trainer, but I'm an actor first and then a fitness trainer.
Well, that kills next week's guest then. I'm going to have to cancel him because I was going to bring on an actor, model, trainer, bartender, bartendress, Congresswoman. Yes, exactly. This has been a great hour, and Rocco and I have so enjoyed talking to you, Gary Collins. Your book is called Going Off the Grid, the how-to book of simple living and happiness. Give us your website and other places where people can go check your stuff out.
Yeah, everything is housed on my website, thesimplelifenow.com. Don't go to The Simple Life. I think it finally expired. That used to be Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton. I didn't know that when I picked the name. I went, this sounds familiar. And then I figured out afterwards. But it's thesimplelifenow.com. Everything's there. My podcast, my books, everything is sold there and housed there. And you can sign up and be part of the Simple Life Insider Circle where I update you. And then I sell all of your data to the NSA and CIA. I don't know. It's all kept in house. And, that's the place to go. And I appreciate people who purchase from me directly because it keeps it in my ecosystem and I'm able to do projects. I just created a project from scratch, the Simple Life Journal, which is a 365-day journal. It's not like all the typical. It's got 35,000 words of content in it of how to get you through and get you to the life that you want to live. I created that from scratch. I printed it. I own it. A nice little $10,000 project right there. But I'm able to do those projects because people come and support me by buying my products on my website. That's how I'm able to create the next product. I put all the money back in for the most part that I don't need for dog food and ammo.
Right. And you're not doing what's really nice is that you're actually doing good for people. You're not doing a GoFundMe page. You're not asking for donations. You're not asking people to, you don't have that nonprofit, mindset. Oh, I need people to give me money. You basically say, hey, listen, buy my shit. You will get value out of it. And then I'm going to give you more shit to buy.
Well, I've never done a GoFundMe campaign. I've never used a Patreon account. I've never asked for donations because I tell people, I know people do that for podcasts. Podcasts don't make money. I get that. But I run my podcast. I pay for all of it. I say I'm not a charity. I'm a business. It's my job to provide you a product that you will purchase and like. That's my job. If I was a charity, I would just create it as a charity and say, send me your money. That's it. It's something me as a business model that I'm not going to take donations. It's my business. I need to figure it out.
What a great way to end. Rocco and I have totally enjoyed having you on. Hopefully you'll come back.
This is the Two Rebels.